Welcome to the TomorrowZone Catalyst Podcast. I'm your host for today, Alissa Bartlett. What if the real risk of your tech initiative isn't the tech at all? In the rush to transform, too many teams skip the critical work of alignment, and they pay the price for it later with friction, fatigue, and failure. Today, we're talking about TomorrowZone's Catalyst Sprint, a human-centered, high-impact process that helps teams surface what's really going on and get on the same page fast. If your innovation plans feel stuck, misaligned, or overly complex, this episode is for you. Joining me is Deborah Reuben, founder and CEO of TomorrowZone, and the creator of the Catalyst Sprint. Deb brings visionary insight and practical experience to this conversation, sharing how this process unlocks clarity, alignment, momentum, where others hit walls. Deb, welcome.
Thanks, Alissa. I was having a mute moment right there.
It happens.
All the time.
So let's start with the basics. What is a Catalyst Sprint and what makes it different from a typical workshop or strategy session?
So the Catalyst Sprint is a diagnostic experience. This is more than just filling out a survey or having a consultant come in and ask you a checklist of questions. We've actually created an experience for cross-functional teams to come together and really examine honestly what's going on in your business. What's the current state of things so that we can get full clarity on that from every different vantage point. What's different about it is it's a highly interactive and visual experience as well, because we're co-creating the big picture of where you are today. So I think what's different from a typical strategy session, usually you're coming out of a offsite workshop or something with a bunch of brainstorming and a list of things to do, but it's not focused on getting shared understanding and cross-functional clarity from so many different angles. And so our diagnostic is less like an X-ray, and it's more like a full workup, including MRI and blood work and all of the other things, head to toe. That's what we're doing with companies.
And it sounds like also this is a very human-centered approach to technology transformation. And I'm curious, why do you think human-centered alignment work is so often skipped in tech initiatives? And what are the consequences when it is?
So why is it skipped, I think, is part of the hype and shiny object syndrome that we're all faced with, because we're always looking for shortcuts, and sometimes it's tempting to think, oh, if I just buy the right technology, it's going to solve all my problems. Often, if you just buy the right technology and slam it in without doing the work up front to get aligned on the human side, you can cause more problems than solutions. And so I think that's the first piece. And I get it. Leaders are so pressured to perform. They're pressured to keep moving things forward. And so if it sounds like a software vendor can just solve all your problems with a quick software license and slam it in, why not? Let's go for it. The challenge, though, is often we think that getting aligned on something like that is an event. So we have a top-down edict, an initiative, and we're getting people together up front and we're saying, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, go. Now we have alignment, but actually you've just done alignment theater. That's not alignment. Alignment is actually an ongoing process of continually staying aligned. And so, one of the reasons that a lot of projects fail is because we don't only get aligned up front, we don't stay aligned throughout. And it causes more problems than you might think. And so I think it's a myth that alignment is an event. It needs to start before you kick off. And that's what our Catalyst Sprint is all about, helping to save your project before it starts.
So could you walk us through a moment in a sprint where a team had a big aha or breakthrough?
We recently worked with an equipment finance company to rapidly map out their end-to-end workflow. And they had added a lot of tech to their tech stack. They have, some pretty amazing technology, and they've made some great choices in technology. But one of the things that we found is that the actual end-to-end workflow had not been reimagined in a very long time. And now we're adding technology to it. And because they had never looked at it together cross-functionally, they didn't really understand just how much one of their teams was doing in that workflow. And we found that over 70% of everything happening in that flow was happening within one particular group. Yet there were 20 different distinct handoffs end to end. And they were wondering why they were having inefficiencies and disconnects. And so, in these cases, there's no technology that you can slam in that's going to fix that, but it takes getting the people together to really take a look at what's really happening. Not what do you think is happening on paper, but what's really happening. And then we can start to align on, oh, I see that is a problem and that would be valuable to address. And now we've got people that are starting to buy in before we even start to make a change. And so I think that human-centered alignment up front is vital if you want to successfully bring in change to your processes and your technology.
And what kinds of friction or misalignment do you commonly see in teams before they go through the Catalyst sprint? And how does the process help shift those?
I think the biggest friction that we see is that we've got cross-functional teams that are being impacted by this change. So let's just imagine you're bringing in a new leasing platform. In a leasing company, you need all of the different functional areas of expertise to make business happen. All of those different areas of functional expertise need to be a part of making that technical project happen. But if you treat it like a technology only project, you're missing it. Because the first piece of friction that I usually see is there's no shared alignment on why we're doing this in the first place, and specifically what it means for me in my role and how my role fits into the big picture of the company. Because quite often, cross-functional teams are missing a shared understanding of the big picture. And so that's the first area where I see friction. The next area where I see friction is just plain old technology first thinking. And it goes back to what I just said earlier, thinking that this is a technology only project is the first challenge that gets so many companies into trouble. And, whenever I'm called in to help a company to recover from a failed project, typically what I find is they used a technology first approach where they thought, oh, we're just installing a software platform. Actually, what you're doing is you are upgrading your operating model for how you do business. That impacts people, process, and technology. Those are the biggest pieces of friction and misalignment that I find before a team goes through a sprint with us. The sprint is meant to dispel that and to get people aligned so that you're ready to go before you start a tech initiative. If you have already started your tech initiative through that tech first mode, you can still pause, back up, and go through a Catalyst sprint experience to get your team aligned so that you can accelerate your success together and stay aligned throughout. The other challenge that we find is people that are really stuck in status quo thinking. This is the way we've always done it. And that holds so many teams back from succeeding. And one of the things that we do as we're going through the Catalyst sprint is we're working together to lay out, here is exactly the current way we're doing things. It's not us coming in and saying, and you should change this, and you should change this, and you should change this. It's your team members actually going, I didn't realize just how broken this process was. We need to change this. We need to change this. We need to change this. And now we're starting to get them not only recognizing where there are problems that are real and valuable to solve, but we're also getting them to recognize that we do need to change. We can't keep doing things the way we've always done it. And it begins the process of getting them out of that status quo mindset so that they can embrace new future possibilities.
How do those visual maps and artifacts from a Catalyst sprint help teams stay aligned after the sessions are over?
So we can refer back to these at any time. So we're not only mapping the current state of things, but what we find through our approach, and we do the Catalyst sprint over the course of 9 sessions. It can take anywhere from a couple of weeks to 4 weeks, depending on the pace that your team can absorb. And so one of the things that comes out of this is we have a current state map for your process, and we can continue to refer back to that as we're designing the future state of your processes. And it almost becomes like a mall map. So if you imagine you're going to, we live in Minnesota. So imagine you're going to the Mall of America and you want to find a certain shoe store, but you go into the north entrance. And the first thing you do usually is you go and look at the map. You might look at the map on your phone, or you might look at the map at a kiosk. But the first thing you're going to do is look at a map. And the first thing you look for on that map is you are here. So you're getting oriented to where you are right now. But then you can see the map and you can see where you're going and you can see how to get there. And so the other thing that comes out of this is not only understanding the current state of our processes. So we've got end-to-end process flows mapped out. We understand where the problems are. We understand where we need to add policies, where we might need to add business rules to improve it. We know where all the improvement opportunities are. We understand how we prioritize. But we also see the technology stack as it is, and we see the technology stack as it could be in the future. And together, we come up with the roadmap for how to get from the current state to the future state, and when certain things need to come in over time. And that roadmap is something that companies use. Many companies that I've worked with to create those roadmaps have been executing on those roadmaps for years. And I've got one that I worked with. It was, I think, 6 years ago that got really clear on current state. We set the short, midterm, and long-term roadmap, and they just kept executing on that roadmap for 6 years. And so the artifacts that come out of it are pretty powerful. And they do get used after, the project kicks off.
What mindset shifts do you notice in leaders who experience a Catalyst sprint?
I think the first thing is we start to see a mindset shift in terms of collaboration and safety. So this isn't something that most companies are setting out to do, but it's vital to get the type of collaboration that we need to get a team prepared to be able to take on a big change initiative. And so one of the things that happens as we're taking folks through this experience, they're not only learning how to use new digital collaboration tool with us, but they're also starting to collaborate in a new way and create a safe space where they can challenge each other or question. We start to get into the mindset of curiosity and asking questions, and that opens up so many new possibilities for examining, well, what exactly are we doing today? How could we do this better or different or not at all? Is it still relevant? Those are sometimes questions that don't feel safe to ask in other environments, but the way that we're doing what we're doing makes it really safe for people from whatever role in the company to challenge those things in a safe way. And everyone is heard. And they're actually heard not only auditorially, but visually as we're capturing their thoughts into this visual space. And this actually came up in a workshop just this morning. I asked, what are you taking away from what we did today? Oh my gosh, I now see just how many possibilities there are for us to improve for the future. And so one of the big mindset shifts is that people start to believe that they can change and that they're not stuck. There are so many more ways that they could do this business than the way they've always done it. And I think that's one of, opening up their eyes to possibility is one of the biggest shifts that we see the other thing that we find, and this isn't really a mindset shift so much, but I've been working on my next book, and one of the things I found in my research as I was looking into this, I'm like, why is this working so well? So one of the things that we are doing with our customers is we're actually creating space for them to step away from the day to day and enter what we call the Tomorrow Zone. It's that space where we are exploring new future possibilities. And so one of the things that I found was some brain research on the default mode network. And I found a couple of studies when it was first discovered, but then later confirmed. And the big takeaway from that is like, if you think about our brains actually literally cannot imagine expansive new future possibilities if they're stuck in firefighting the day-to-day issues. So when we are constantly putting out fires, dealing with the urgency of day-to-day, our brain can't be thinking, oh, what if we did this different? What if, it's not going to get into possibility mode. And too often as leaders, we're trying to expect and command people to get into that mode without making space for it. And so I think, the other shift that we see is leaders starting to see the value of making space for that kind of thinking. And that's one of the things that we do just in the way that we're facilitating this is to quickly create that space and get people into the mode where they can start thinking differently.
Yeah, it's a whole different mindset to go from the day-to-day operations and firefighting, as you say, and, to go into the thinking about what's possible.
Yeah.
So
if you just think about your personal experience, like if I've got 52,000 different things coming at me, I'm probably not going to be thinking about, oh, what if I rearranged my house? Or, it's going to be like, I need to find this right now. You have to create space for it. I know, like you do this, where you get out for walks to think and explore. And I know you do some visioning work yourself.
I do.
Dream boards and stuff. You're probably not like fighting the day-to-day issues, wrangling kids, cooking dinner while you're in that thought process, right?
No, I'm usually doing it late at night when everyone else is asleep.
Yeah, you're making space for it. In personal life, even in business, your brain can't be in future mode and today mode at the same time. So that was, for me, was a huge takeaway. I'm like, no wonder this is working.
Yeah. So speaking of which, I would love to hear a little more about your book if you're able to share at this time.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, a lot of work. You'll be glad to know it is not a how-to manual or a textbook. Like my first book, the CLFP handbook, that was a whole different experience. That was 6 months. So I've been working on a book that really just describes the pillars of the TomorrowZone system. So our working title right now is Enter the TomorrowZone. It's all about how to inspire breakthrough innovation to shape the future. It's five pillars that kind of cut through everything we do and how we think and why and how you can apply it in your own personal life or even in your company. That's what I've been working on. It has been, oh my gosh, it has been quite a heavy lift in my spare time, which is like most nights and weekends, heads down. But I'm happy to say we're on our second round of review of the manuscript, and it's starting to come together. But man, extreme. It's like an extreme sport.
Yeah, and it takes a village, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've got a really great team working with me on the project. So grateful for their patience. Because it's like, so often, and I say this all the time, but you can't know everything from the start. There are some things that are revealed as you start taking steps forward. And that's the same thing that's happened with this book is, I thought I knew what I wanted, but as I started to dig in and get into it, it morphs and changes. And it's such an incredible journey, but it also like really crystallizes how you think about things. And so while I am going to be incredibly joyfully glad when it's over, I am getting a lot out of the process beyond just exhaustion.
Good for you. That's wonderful. And I think it's great that it's something that can be used in business and in personal lives. So
yeah, our thought
I'm really
process is very
excited.
scalable.
To shift back to the Catalyst Sprint, for someone hearing this and thinking, maybe we need this, what's the best way to know if their team is ready?
If you're listening to us talk about this thing, Catalyst Sprint, is this something that you need? If you're committed to making a major change and it involves a lot of people, process, technology, this might be for you. I like to use a slingshot metaphor. What the Catalyst Sprint is like, it's like instead of just diving in and moving forward with your initiative, it's a pause for you and your team to pull back and really get a clear sense of the big picture and really thoroughly understand together the why behind the thing, to get aligned in a way that helps you to stay aligned so that when you release that slingshot and you start to shoot forward into your project, you actually have the strength, the momentum, the mindset, skill set, and tool set that's going to sustain you and your team through what inevitably is going to happen, which we call the messy middle. That's the point between when you kick off your project and then you finally go live on that new thing. In between, it's always messy because, as I mentioned before, you can't know everything from the start. There are things that you will only ever know when you get to that point in the project. And you need to be aligned with your why, your guiding principles, and understanding, as a team, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're going to get through it to sustain you through those wicked, tricky parts of any initiative. And those things happen not because you're bad, they happen because these things are complex. And so, stepping back and doing this Catalyst Sprint thing can actually propel you to go through that so much better.
Thank you for that metaphor. It helps to really crystallize what we're trying to do with the Catalyst Sprint.
Yeah, a lot of people see it as, oh, this is going to slow me down. But actually, if you slow down, step back, take a look, and co-create the big picture together, what happens is instead of bolting on an event where you're getting buy-in, you're actually building it from the start before you start. Because what we found is people who go through an experience like this, they're a part of the why and they're a part of the vision and they're actually part of co-creating the roadmap for the future. And we have found it's very hard for people to resist the plan they were part of creating. I was just talking to an executive recently at an industry event, and he said to me, hey, I haven't talked with you in a while, but that work that you did with us, we worked with them back in 2022. He said, you helped our team to really get aligned and we stayed aligned and we've been able to successfully execute on that roadmap ever since. And so they've been racking up wins even beyond the initial project because they agreed to step back and get aligned together before they started.
So I imagine that stepping back actually helps you to go faster in the future.
Does. Yeah, it is such a powerful accelerator. And, just like we started this conversation, it's part of the human side of innovation that most teams overlook. But the ones that get together and get committed to really get their team ready to take on the future, they're the ones that succeed.
Just a closing question. What is one myth about tech initiatives that you think needs to be retired?
So I love this question. We've been doing a lot of myth busting right now at TomorrowZone. We're actually just working on busting a bunch of myths for a client today. So here's the myth about tech initiatives that I think needs to be retired. I think the myth that tech initiatives fail because of bad technology. And in reality, what I've found, most failures trace back to misaligned people, unclear goals, blind spots in the process, and readiness. So I did a bunch of research because I saw big consulting firm research that came out. And this has been, over the years, many research projects have revealed that 70% of transformational initiatives fail to deliver on their promise. So I was really curious, like, how do you help teams to be a part of that 30% that succeed? And what I found as I was digging in is that the majority of failed projects are due to underpreparedness. Not the
and that's
tech.
a large percentage that are failing.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's a human issue. I mean, sometimes there are tech problems, but the tech problems are actually easy to overcome if you deal with the human side.
Well, thank you, Deb. This has been illuminating.
Thanks for having me on my own show.
Sometimes we have to do that.
It's fun to change it up a bit.
So out to our audience, if you're preparing for a complex tech initiative, remember, don't skip the human side. Book a TomorrowZone Catalyst sprint and bring your team into alignment before you build. And if this episode sparked a new perspective, please share it with your team. It could be the first step towards real transformation. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and choose to make awesome happen.
Thanks for making awesome happen, Alissa.